Hi everyone, this is Arunansi Patnaik. Welcome to my channel Tipsora Pod. If you are just tuning in, please like, subscribe, hit the bell icon so that you get notified when I upload new videos. If you have questions, you can direct message me or discuss in comments. In today's video, I'm going to talk about how to use Azure AI Studio to build generative AI applications using large language model and how to operationalize it within your business, a process that's called LLM ops, just like DevOps for software development, ML ops for machine learning. It's LLM ops for large language model. Okay. So AI is everywhere these days. You read the news, there is, lot of, news coming out about, new type of AI technology being created, a new company being created around AI, you know, large companies using AI in a way that wasn't done before, right? So there was a research done by MIT Sloan Management that said 87% of organizations believe that AI will give them competitive edge, and that shouldn't be a surprise because most people and organizations use AI to gain competitive edge. But what slows down the adoption of AI, and generative AI is the most advanced form of AI we have today. When organizations think about adopting Gen AI, they see that the state of the art is evolving so quickly. What's the latest and greatest is kind of changing. So people are kind of playing that wait game to figure out, maybe they will wait for the technology to mature and then they will start using it, but by that time it might be too late. So it's how to get started. That in itself is a challenge, right? Then there is the development aspect of it. These Gen AI applications require a different development philosophy, and that type of a development process needs to be created. Then there is the context aspect of it, where these large language models, they have vast amount of data. It's almost the entire internet's data. But if that's what you're using, then it's kind of like you're using the internet in a chatbot, right? But that might be too generic for your domain and what you're trying to do. So how you customize it to make sure your app is doing what you want to do and the way you want to do. So there is an art and science behind it, and people are still figuring out how to do that. Then the evaluation aspect of it, when you have a software, there is a QA process to evaluate the software and find bugs. When you have a large language model, a Gen AI application, there are different aspects to how you evaluate it. And it's a challenge to figure out what that evaluation process looks like and how to go about incorporating that into your development lifecycle. And it all comes down to operationalization, right? How do you integrate AI into your business process and your IT development lifecycle? That's the biggest piece of the puzzle that organizations are struggling to figure out, and that's why Gen AI adoption is being slow because of this operationalization concern, right? So what's operationalization? From a business aspect of it, operationalization is the process of figuring out how to incorporate AI into the business process to get better business outcome. From IT perspective, it's about how to create that new software development life cycle for Gen AI, since it introduces new concepts and new challenges, right? The LLM ops, they introduce you know a new type of DevOps process. So if you compare that to traditional uh, machine learning operation or ML ops, there are some differences. With ML ops, you are dealing with machine learning engineer and data scientist. With LLM ops, you are dealing with machine learning engineers and app developers working together. Right. So in ML ops, you have model, data, and environment, the features within your data, right? But with LLM ops, you have LLM agents, plugin, prompts, there is chain, APIs, right? So there are different assets within LLM ops as compared to ML ops. In traditional ML ops, you have metrics like accuracy or maybe F1 score or things like that. Whereas with LLM ops, you have things like quality, the harm or correctness, and the cost, latency, right? So these are new types of metrics that you traditionally didn't worry about in ML ops. With ML ops, you are building stuff from scratch. You might be using a library that can implement few algorithms, but you are using the data to train the model, and you do hyperparameter tuning. And so a large part of it is custom code, right? With LLM ops, you are starting with a pre-trained model, and then maybe you fine tune or build architecture around it to customize it. So that makes LLM ops different from ML ops. A life cycle of LLM development can start with your foundational LLM, and the data that you have. Then you use that to do some prompt engineering to customize the behavior. Then you experiment and evaluate it. Then you do implement your CI CD, and along with CI CD you have a component called CE, or continuous evaluation. So you do continuous integration, continuous deployment, and as you're doing, you are continuously evaluating, right? So you deploy it, inference it and use it in your application, and then you continuously monitor it for those evaluation metrics. And when it's deployed, you do an online evaluation of user testing to make sure the user behavior and the experience is as you expect, right? And from a business aspect of it, the process of incorporating LLM within an organization is, first you have to identify the business need, then you need to create a project around it, then prepare your development team to build an app around it. Once the app is built, then the feedback needs to be sent back to business, saying what's done. So business needs to evaluate that, is the app serving the business need, right? And based on that, go back to reevaluating the business need, and that's the cycle that goes on from the business side of it. In Azure, Azure AI Studio is a UI based platform that can make these LLM development and LLM ops really easy, and bring that productiveness within your both business organization as well as your IT development team. So now that we know that Azure AI Studio can be used to implement LLM ops within an organization, let's now see how we work with Azure AI Studio. So, this is going to be my first walkthrough of Azure AI Studio. So, in future, I'm going to talk model specific or use case specific, and I'm going to refer to this video and say, if you haven't worked on Azure AI Studio, watch this video so that you're familiar with how Azure AI Studio works. So the way you get into AI, Azure AI Studio, is you go to ai.azure.com and then sign in. I'm already signed in, so it just gets me directly in there. Once you are in Azure AI Studio, you need to create a new project. Okay. Now you give it a project name. Let's say I am building Arun Copilot or say project, and just create a new resource. Say click next. Okay. So you have to give it an AI hub name. So that's kind of the resource behind your AI Studio project. Let's say Arun Copilot Hub. Okay, so you select your subscription, um, create a resource group. Let's say create a new resource group, Azure AI sources, and select a region. I'm going to select East US 2. The reason is, if you go into the documentation, see, not every model is available in every region. So this document tells you, like, I want to use GPT-4. It's available in East US 2, and East US 2 just a new region, so it's the chances of everything being available is more there. So I'm going to pick East US 2. Okay. So it asks you for a name for OpenAI. So this Arun Copilot Hub, that name is kind of used to create your new OpenAI resource, right? And you have to create a new uh, Azure AI search, and you have to uh, give it the name here. Now, since I haven't created any, it's not giving me options, so I need to go and create an Azure AI search resource. So let's go back into the portal, and I'll go and say create resource, and within AI machine learning, let's say I say AI search, and it will sub Azure AI search. Okay, I'll say create Azure AI search, and say Azure sources, service name. Let's say Arun AI search, and I want to select East US. East US 2, since I'm doing my AI Studio project in East US 2. Pricing tier, I think I'd be okay with basic. That's a little cheaper. And then let's say review and create. Okay. So once okay, so it will start deploying, and once that resource is created, I can go to it and I can see that resource is created. So now if I come back here, I can see that that's not showing up. So if I have to go back and come back, so now notice my Azure AI resources is now selected because it's now detecting that that resource group has been created. And under Azure AI search, now my Arun AI search is showing up. So now I can select my Azure AI search. Okay. So I click next, then I say create project, and now it will go and create project. Okay, so now I have completed creating my project, Arun Copilot project, right, within Azure AI Studio. And you can go to the resource group, okay, and see all the resources that it created. So the Arun AI search I created separately within the same resource group, so that's there. But here is my Copilot Hub. This is my project. It created a key vault to store secret. It created a storage account that we'll be using later to upload data to it. It has an application inside. It has a log analytics workspace to store logs right? And it created an Azure OpenAI resource that we'll be using later to deploy some models, right? So now that I am here, so let's first go into the deployment, because the first thing you need is you need to deploy a model, an Azure OpenAI model, to work with your LLM project, or to build your copilot. So when you say create, you have two ways to create your model, right? So there is the real-time endpoint, which is like it's going to give you that real-time wizard to create it, and then you have a pay-as-you-go, which is a managed service, right? So I'll use the real-time endpoint. Okay, that is, let's say I select the GPT-4. I don't need the GPT-4 32K, and say confirm. I'll keep the name the same and say deploy. And now my GPT-4 is deployed. Now I can click open in Playground, or I can just go to Playground and make sure that my GPT-4 is selected as deployment, right? So the Playground is where you can select your deployment model and kind of do some kind of testing to see how your model behaves, right? So uh, there is a system message. This is kind of your system prompt, that you are an AI assistant that helps people find information, right? So I will ask it a question like, how much do trail walker hiking shoes cost, right? So if I say that, let's see what it says. Okay. As an AI, I don't have access to real time data or pricing for specific product. Prices of items like trail work hiking shoes can vary depending on the brand model you are purchasing. So it's giving me a lot of generic information, basically saying that I don't know about the product you are talking about, because it does not yet have the data that it needs to get information about this specific product, right? So we have to give it the data. This is where you need to ground your model to your data, to make sure it recognizes your data. Then you can ask question about your data. Now, to work on the data, there is a GitHub repo. Okay, it's called AI Studio Copilot. Within that, there is some data, like there is a customer data and there is a product info data. So if you go into this, it has a bunch of information around, like, okay, this is the product name, it's a tent, it has pricing information and the detailed attributes of how it is, and lots of descriptions. So there are a bunch of these files, okay, that contain the name of the item, the price, and then a lot of features and all the other details. So I want to use all these files to make my copilot learn about all the products I have, and their attributes, right? So I have already cloned this GitHub repo, and I'm going to use that to add the data source, right? So if I click on data source and I say select data source, I'm going to say upload files. Okay. When you say upload files, you have to provide it the storage account. So it has automatically selected my storage account, right? That we created when we created the AI Studio project. You have to turn on cross origin resource sharing. This is necessary for AI Studio to be able to access the data once it's uploaded, right? So I turn on course, and then I need to give it my AI search resource, right? You have to give it an index. So let's say this is my product index, right? I could add vector search also. For now, I'm going to skip that and say acknowledge that it's going to encounter some building on my AI search as well as OpenAI. So I click next, and now I can browse, and I have the GitHub repo cloned here. And if I go into the data, here is my product info field, right? And I can select all the files and say open. Okay, so that's going to add all the files here. I say upload file, and then all the files are uploaded. I can click next, and then I can say, how do you want to search it? Keyword is the only option for now, since I did not do vector search, right? So then I click next and then save and close. Once I do that, now the data is getting ingested and the index is getting created. Okay, now if we go back to the playground, and you know uh, we know that our application can answer question about product pricing, right? But let's say we ask another question about how many trailwork hiking shoes did Daniel Wilson buy. Now we're not just asking about product, we're also asking question about customer, right? So let's see what it says. We provided it information about the product, that's why it's able to answer prices. But now it's saying the request information not available in the retrieved data, please try another query, because it knows about product but it does not know about the customer. So if we go under indexes, this is where it has index of our data. So our product index is there, but customer index is not there. So let's go ahead and create another index for customer. So let's at the data source, I'm going to upload the file, and I'm going to upload the folder, say customer info. So it's going to upload all the customer information, and then I'm going to use the AI search as an index. So this time I am using vector search. So to use vector search, it also needs to create an embedding model in Azure OpenAI. So I'll say, okay, I will allow it to create. Now it's going to deploy that embedding model, and I will give it an index name. Let's call it customer index, and let's create it. Okay, so that's going to create that customer index. I have started creating my customer index. As you can see, it's running now. I can go into the index and see some more detail. Like if I go into the job detail, it takes me to Azure Machine Learning Studio. So it's a job in my Azure Machine Learning, and it gives me a detailed graph of exactly what it's doing. So right now it's at the chunk and embed phase. So after that, it's going to create the index. So I just wanted to show you how you can view the job status as it's happening. While the customer index is running, we can go back to our prompt flow and start incorporating that customer index. Okay, so if we look at our graph, so our input goes into determine intent, and then extract intent, and then retrieve document. So now the retrieve document, when we only had product, the retrieve document was retrieving only product information. Now we need to retrieve the product information as well as the customer information. So let's change the retrieve document name to retrieve product info, and let's add another Python module where let's call it retrieve customer info. Okay. So in the retrieve customer info, I am going to use the code from retrieve product info. It is very similar, retrieval document retrieval. So let's replace this code with the same code. And after I do that, I can say validate and parse input, right? And then now here I can start assigning. So this is the advantage of using Azure AI Studio in the UI, that you get a lot of intelligence to set the parameter. So you don't need to go through the code to kind of figure it out. If you are doing it using VS Code or something, you don't need to do it. You can set all the inputs here in the UI. And another thing we need to do is we need to go back to the determine reply and format the retrieve document. Okay, we need to change the code because currently the retrieve document is kind of built assuming you only have product information. Now if we are product plus customer, we need to change the code a little bit. So I have the code here. I'm going to include the complete link to all the code and the steps in the description, so you have access to all the code and step in case you want to recreate this on your own. So now my customer index is ready. So if I go back to my prompt flow, I have made the edits. So now if I go to, so I have my retrieve product info, and if you see in the DAG, I have made the adjustment that now after I determine intent, now the extract intent does retrieve customer info as well as retrieve product info, and then combined they format the document. Okay, and it format conversation, and then it does determine reply, format reply, and then format a document as well as the reply go into output. So this is my retrieve product info. And then if I go to retrieve customer info, notice I have the code for that, and I have set the parameters uh, accordingly so that it understands how to take the input. And I have also changed the code for format retrieve document, and I have given it the input as the output from product info as well as customer info. And in the determined reply, I have set the documentation to document output dot the result string. Okay, and in the format reply, I have set to determine reply dot output. So all my code is set. Okay, so now if I go into the chat, now I can ask the question. So the original question about product, it takes some time to run. Let's see if it. Okay, so it came back with the price as well as it's saying the document. So in this case, my uh, doc one, which is the product, and I can ask it the question about customer also here. And let's see. So, how many trail worker hiking shoes did Daniel Wilson buy? Let's see. Now it should know about the customer as well. Let's see if what it says. Okay, so Daniel Wilson purchased a pair of trail worker hiking shoes and it's giving the doc one reference. Okay, so my code is ready. It has both customer data as well as product data. Okay, now I need to evaluate it for accuracy. Okay, in order to evaluate, there is custom evaluation as well as built-in evaluation. Okay, so if I go into the built-in evaluation, I can say evaluation name, let's say QA. Okay, I can say question answer with retrieval augmented generation. Okay, and I want to evaluate my current flow, then it gives me metrics, right? So like these are the types of metrics that you want to evaluate your LLM on. So one is groundedness, how well is it grounded to the data that I have given, the relevance, how relevant is the data to the actual result, okay, and the retrieval score, right? So it's the what it retrieved, um, you know and how relevant is it. So the retrieval score, relevance score, and groundedness, those are what I am evaluating. Okay, I can use a new data set. So I have, in order to do this kind of testing, you need to create your test input, something like this, where it's a JSON document where I'm saying, I'm giving it the question, what color is the cozy night sleeping bag? I'm saying truth, it's red, the chat history is empty, right? So I have it already created. So I can just upload this into the data so that. So once it's uploaded, I can say chat history is empty. Okay. The query is from the data input, right? So once I upload, I can set these variables to appropriate fields within my JSON file, and then I can click next, and then I do submit. So when I submit, this evaluation testing is now submitted, so that evaluation will start happening. The evaluation has been submitted, it's not started yet, but while that's happening, this is the built-in metric evaluation. You also have the option to do manual evaluation. In manual evaluation, it's kind of, you have to do manual work, but it's very UI driven, so it's a lot easier to work with. For example, here I can just input the question and output answer that I'm expecting. So, for example, I can take it from within my test data itself and say that for this input, okay, I expect the answer to be red, right? And then I can run it. So if I run, it would now run this question against my model and say, okay, the output is the coordinate sleeping bag is red in color. I expected red. That means this answer is correct. So I can, give it a thumbs up, right? To say this data is correct. So, this is an easy way to do your testing. If you are not comfortable creating JSON file to load your evaluation, right? Um, but if you already have a bunch of values created that you need to kind of re-upload when you create a new flow, it's better to create that data file that has all your metric testing, all of your question answers in that format, so that you can just upload into your metric evaluation, and you do your testing that way. So within evaluation, so let me save this result so I have it. And testing results. Okay. So I tested it now. See, if I go to evaluation, so in evaluation you have metric evaluation as well as manual evaluation. Okay. So here I have my evaluation completed. I used one of my manual tests to do the evaluation. So if you look at the evaluation, it tells you the retrieval and relevance score, and that is my question about the color coordinate bag. So as you can see, this is how you can evaluate and see the metric score. It also gives you the logs, trace, and snapshot of the code, right? So so once you have your app built in the prompt flow, you can evaluate, and the next thing is you might want to add some content filter for some additional safety measure, like whatever uh, your product is outputting. On top of that, you can say, the scan for violence, hate, sexual violence, like things like this. It has different threshold level, and you can use it. And also, like, for safety, there is jailbreak detection, protection material. So you can select all these and apply, right? As I wanted to show you that that option is there. So I'm not going to do this right now. And next, I wanted to show you that once you have all the code built in a, and you have adjusted everything in prompt flow, you can load your code using VS Code web or desktop, right? So if you click it, it asks for a compute name. So I'll say compute. I can use GP, just use the standard, and I create a compute, and it's going to create that compute, and then it's going to load my VS Code environment. So using the VS Code environment, then I will have access to the complete code, which I can then include into GitHub and create GitHub actions, or any kind of CI/CD pipeline to kind of automate this entire process of build, deploy, and test the entire cycle that we just went through manually through the UI. So you can use the UI for development, but once it's operationalized in production, you want to use the code in the VS Code to make it part of your CI/CD pipeline to operationalize it. While the compute is getting created, I wanted to show you that within the Manage tab, you can select your hub resource that you created, and you get details on your project, the connections that you have created to cognitive search, the permissions that you have assigned, who are the users who have access, and what level of access they have. The compute instance, this is the compute instance getting created for my VS Code, right? And all the connection to your AI search and storage, everything that you have set up in the project, the policies that you have added to your project, right? And the cost and billing. So you can go to the Azure Cost Monitor to view the billing right from here, so that you get a cost analysis of everything that is kind of available through your project, right? So that's my Copilot Hub. So I see the billing for that there. Okay. And also, I wanted to show you that within Azure AI Search, you can go into index and see that your customer index and product index is created. If I go into customer index, I can see that uh, what field it used, so I can get information about, because this was all set up through Azure AI Studio. I didn't have to come in here and do it manually, right? So it created the vector semantic configuration also, since I added embedding, right? So you can see how Azure AI Studio created your index going into your AI search, right? So this one I did not select vector, so semantic configuration is default. Okay. Now I wanted to show you that in AI Studio, under the Explore tab, you have the model catalog, where you can see lot of models. There are new models getting added every other day, and it just keeps growing. You can view benchmarks on the models that are available, right? And you also have a library of prompt catalogs. So depending on what type of LLM model you are creating, is travel assistant or social media analyst, all these. So these are uh, like prompts, prompt engineer techniques for a specific type of agent. So you can take advantage of this to create the type of LLM application or GenAI application that you want to create. My compute is ready now, so I can use this to view my code in VS Code. Okay, so it's now checking environment status. Okay, this might take some time. So the environment is created. Now I can launch. And now it's launching my VS Code in the browser environment. I can pick my email to log in, and now I have the VS Code in the browser, and I can see my source code here after it loads. And here I can completely set up. Notice my code is here. That's the README file. So under prompt flow, all of my prompt flow Python and Jinja files are here. So I can now take this code, commit it to source control, and set up a CI/CD pipeline. Okay, so that concludes my walkthrough of Azure AI Studio and how to use AI Studio to implement LLM ops. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned for the next video.